The Toronto Blue Jays backs were against the wall before coming into Game 3 as they get punched in the mouth in the first two games. But Game 3 comes around 13-4. This team punches right back.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. I'm Brayden. He's Carter First. Man, that is the response game that we've talked about all season. This team gets hit, and they get back up and throw a few themselves. This is a masterclass from the Toronto Blue Jays offense, something that was completely missing from Game 1 and 2 from this offense. And to be honest with you, Carter, I got to give you some props. You're the guy all season that's been sitting here and saying that every time this team, throws a wrench into what you believe, they come back out of the depths of hell and show you why, you should never lose faith in this ball club. It was absolutely unbelievable. We're going to talk the offense. We're going to talk the pitching. We're going to talk Game 4, how this all tees up for the Toronto Blue Jays possibly to have some success here, right? You can never be too out on this team because, man, they can have a game like this that just drags all of Canada right back to them. You can find us on Twitter, Brayden 5 Iwasco, Carter First 2 as well, and our main one at Locked On Jays. Also, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays. And if you're new here to YouTube, hit the subscribe button. You guys have been killing it lately. The comments, the likes, the subscriptions, the text messages or DMs we've received across all the apps. You guys are unbelievable. And for all of you that stuck with this team all season long up to this point, good on you. Still much more baseball to come with this group. Carter, my man, initial reactions, thoughts, feelings. What do you got for us?
Well, that was a little bit better than the first two games, eh? Just a little bit. All of a sudden, again, just the script completely flips upside down. And it's not even credit to me. It's just credit to the Toronto Blue Jays because they've done it time and time again, every single instance that they've had the opportunity to do it. And this time was probably the easiest time to be out on the Toronto Blue Jays. Like we said, with the rest that the Seattle Mariners pitching staff had, the pitching matchups that we had, just the momentum that you thought you might have going from a New York Yankees series in the Seattle Mariners series, everything you thought and you might know about the Toronto Blue Jays seemed to be thrown out the window in those first two games. So this would have been the opportunity to kind of take the exit, the perimeter exit, get off your right side, get out of the Toronto Blue Jays, get off the bandwagon. But they bring you right back in once again, and it's everybody. We talk about this team being one of the closest dugouts of all time. There might be something to say about that, which is getting a little bit ridiculous because we see nobody hit, and then we see everybody hit. Literally everybody on this roster, once again, showed up, and it's crazy because either they all show up or they don't show up. Predominantly this year, they have shown up, but it really sucks when they do not show up. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. right at the forefront of it. Alejandro Kirk adding to it, hitting a home run. George Springer home run. Andres Gimenez debatably saving the season, the most unlikely source of all time. So you just got to carry on this momentum. It's all fun and games right now. You win one game, but you're still down 2-1 in the series. If you lose Game 4, you're down 3-1. Honestly, not that much game. So now, as I said, must-win game in Game 3. That kind of just transfers over to Game 4 now. I would say with Max Scherzer on the mound, maybe not the guy that you want in that situation, but now all the must-win accolades, that's the word I'm looking for, third time's a charm, accolades that were going into the third game are never transferred over to that fourth game, and now I think the fourth game is just as much as a must-win as that third game was.
Carter, I guess let's start in that first inning. Let's start right up from the jump with Shane Bieber. Didn't look good in that first inning. There was hanging pitches, things weren't breaking, he was missing his spots, and he got banged up for it. And you looked over at me, and you're like, oh, God. And I'm like, yeah, dude, I don't know what to say. But then this team punches back. Andres Gimenez, you said it, possible season saver home run just from the most unlikely source. A guy that, gets up to the plate and we're like, well, there goes that inning. But no, instead he sends a moon ball out of here and propels this Blue Jays team to success. But the way that Shane Bieber was able to continue through this game after that first inning and the confidence of Schneider to put him back out there for the sixth inning, to me, was a little bit of a, hey, lesson learned. We're up by a ton of runs. Let's use this guy. Let's not throw this to the bullpen and waste arms. Let's give the guys who we need some rest here because we can. We have that opportunity and that ability. How good was Shane Bieber tonight outside of that first inning?
I was terrified in the first inning. I saw that pitch to Julio Rodriguez. I saw him hanging sliders, hanging curveballs. The changeup didn't really look like it was moving a ton. I think I told you, I think I just said the words. I said it was over. I'm pretty sure I said that at that time. I know a lot of other Blue Jays fans probably felt the same way because if we would have saw that Shane Bieber, the first inning Shane Bieber pitched that entire game, that's the feelings that I was having when he pitched against the New York Yankees. He was getting hard hit everywhere. The command wasn't really on. And I was not confident in first inning Shane Bieber. I don't know what he did. Maybe it's the smelling salts. I don't know what he got on in that dugout. But when he came out for that second inning, really had a bounce back inning there. The third inning, they score runs. Shane Bieber comes back out. You get that Andres Gimenez home run. Very easy to be able to give that back and kind of ruin the momentum with the Seattle Mariners fan base being, very rowdy, very loud, obviously, with that start. Shane Bieber just locks in, starts racking up the whiffs. The slider looked very good. We're starting to use the curveball earlier on in counts as well. The fastball looked relatively good, I'd say, the entire game. Although I didn't love the pitch to Julio Rodriguez. It's more so of a sequencing thing. But again, that's just a nice swing by Julio Rodriguez. They're a good team in the Seattle Mariners too. But yeah, credit to a veteran. Credit to bounce back in that first inning where I'm sure I wasn't the only one that was very worried about what we were seeing from Shane Bieber in that first inning. Exactly what you needed. You need a guy to go out there, especially with the way the first two games went, kind of take control, go into a hostile environment, and really assert your dominance and get that much-needed win that the Toronto Blue Jays needed.
Carter, another guy that me and you have talked a ton about, and it has become a fan favorite, that's Ernie Clement. You really got to give him all the credit in the world for being able to come out and sort of be that spark plug, right? That double down the left field line, really changed the game, right? Yes, it doesn't happen if Andres Jimenez doesn't hit that home run and spark this team again. But it all starts with Ernie Clement. The way he's been able to do this all season in big moments and not big moments, just everywhere, all the time. Ernie Clement has been that guy who you can rely on. And that's why he's become an everyday player for this team because he's just very reliable. And then obviously you didn't know that you were going to get the Andres Jimenez home run. That nobody in the world.
I don't think anyone could have told you that ever.
So you got to really give props to Ernie for at least getting the ball rolling for this team and maybe giving them a little bit of a spark. Carter, and I know he's your guy, right? You've been on him for a while now. Just what has Ernie Clement really meant to this club and especially for Game 3 here?
All season long, you've seen how meaningful the reps are with Ernie Clement, whether at second base, third base. You could probably throw him in the outfield like he used to play. And earlier in his career, he'd probably be successful at that. So just the utility aspect, being able to throw him anywhere in the infield defensively, and not just being able to put him there, him excelling at defense, him providing you one of the best defensive gloves in all of baseball. And then with the bat, we've seen as well, especially against left-handed pitchers, but he can do it against righties, which we've seen throughout this series as well. Him being dominant, him being able to put the bat on the ball, really just being a contact specialist. You're never seeing Ernie strike out. And you see some wacky swings from him, but it usually ends up with the ball going into the outfield and falling. I bet you Ernie Clement is one of those guys that pitchers see at the plate and they get frustrated. They know that this guy might not have the greatest swing technical-wise, and he might, kind of throw the hands at the ball, but a lot of the time it is going to work out for him. But in Game 3 here, specifically in this moment, you see what happens in that first inning. You go 1-2-3. For me, it was the worst case scenario. 1-2-3 inning, not really any life from your offense at all. And then what does Shane Bieber do? He gives up a moon ball. The crowd is very involved in the game, and those are my 2 points. Score early and don't get the crowd involved. What do they do in the first inning? They check both of those off the checklist, and that's why I was not very excited to watch the rest of this game. But Ernie Clement kind of getting that spark back where it would have been easy to kind of roll over and really let the Seattle crowd take over that baseball game. He hammers one down the line. Again, Andres Gimenez definitely helps things out here. Did not have that on my bingo card. What a swing from Jimenez. Obviously, that helps if he's on first base, third base. Doesn't matter when Andres Gimenez is going to do that. But just the value of having, honestly, both of those guys in the middle, especially defensively, when you talk about just them turning double plays in the middle of the infield. It's very special to watch. But Ernie Clement at least gives you some more upside offensively, and it has been debatably the best hitter for the Toronto Blue Jays ball club in the postseason. Probably still give it to Vladdy, but he's definitely in that conversation.
And you know what? You talked about a guy, throwing his hands at the ball. Alejandro Kirk pokes one out of here. And there's a lot more we want to get to yet. Something that I talked about as a key to the game. I want to touch on that at the beginning of segment 2 here, because I think it is the most important part of this ball club and where they can have success. And that's what we saw tonight. We'll talk about that when we come back, as well as some ratings wise, because the Canadian fans are really showing up and showing out for this Toronto Blue Jays team. We'll talk about all that. But Carter, Alejandro, Kirk, it seems like when a couple guys are going, this team just absolutely is a buzzsaw. And that is Alejandro Kirk, Daulton Varsho, and of course, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. When those three guys are going, it's the heart of the order. It's the heart of this lineup. They're the guys that you want to be doing damage. And when they are, and they're on their game, this is the kind of game that can happen for the Toronto Blue Jays. I know, big shocker, right? Your three guys in the middle of your order doing well. The team does well. Shocker, but it's important.
Well, it absolutely is. That's one stat that I brought up on the last podcast. Is I brought up the 3, 4, 5 hitters. That doesn't include Daulton Varsho in this scenario, but that's Vladdy and Alejandro Kirk. Just what they did in the first 2 games of the series. 1 for 20 was your 3, 4, 5 hitters throughout the first 2 games. Who would have thought you were not going to score runs and you were not going to produce offense when your 3, 4, and 5 hitters were not doing literally anything offensively? And look at this. Now you score 13 runs. Who's right in the middle of it? Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Alejandro Kirk. These are their stat lines combined tonight. They are 6 for 8, 2 home runs, 2 doubles, 4 RBIs, 2 walks. It's right in front of our faces. If these guys hit, we'll throw Daulton Varsho obviously in there as well. If you have these 3 guys hitting, that's easily the difference of you scoring runs and probably winning that baseball game, or you putting up a dud, playing that goose egg, and putting up that 0 and probably losing that baseball game. So yeah, it might sound like the most obvious thing of all time, but we've seen it right in front of our faces. If these guys in the middle of your order in any baseball team, obviously, if they're not hitting, you're probably not going to win the game. If these guys are hitting, if these guys show up, the Toronto Blue Jays are going to win more games than they lose.
Yeah, Carter, still a lot more to come from us. Again, I think the biggest key to this victory was something that we talked about quite a bit. And they mentioned it on the broadcast. We'll talk about it because it's the point that I've been hammering home, no matter if I'm talking to my buddy on the street or to you here on the podcast. It has been my number one key. So we'll come back after this break and chat a little bit about that before we talk about what the Canadian fans did to shock the Americans a little bit. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season's here. MLB postseason in full swing. NHL, man, CFL, everything's going really well. There's a lot to bet on. And FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I absolutely love it. I mean, I just hit a bet. Blue Jays win. The over on runs, total in the game, and a Vladdy hit. Don't get me wrong. Wasn't the craziest bet of all time, but I've been on a losing skid. I needed one, and this Blue Jays team backed me up for it. So thank you to FanDuel for that one. They gave me a little bit of a boost there as well, so that was nice. Make sure you guys go and get those bonus bets as well. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. All right. I got to bring it up. It has been the one thing that I have been leaning on and talking about nonstop, no matter who asks me the question of what is a key to the Blue Jays having success against not only the Mariners, but any ball club. And it's not giving away middle pitches. Be ready for them. Be on them. This team did a much better job. If they see a middle pitch early in a count, 0-0, 1-0, whatever it may be, they weren't watching it go by them. Yes, in some situations, Vladdy took one as well in this game, and I wasn't super thrilled. But even Vlad, I mean, he hits the ball right after. He gets a middle pitch, doesn't swing at it, gets a second one, and does damage. And that's, at the end of the day, the biggest thing for this team is you have to take advantage of the opportunities that are given to you. Pitchers aren't going to miss twice in an at-bat very often. So the one pitch you get, that's a fastball, middle, take advantage. Even if it's not a fastball, middle, you should be geared up and ready early in a count for those pitches. These pitchers were going to attack. Seattle is going to attack. Try to get up early. And that's something this team has not done very well of in the first 2 games. Honestly, even going back to the Yankees series, they were watching a lot of first pitches. The difference is the Yankees pitchers were throwing a lot more balls, and they were giving the Blue Jays some walks. Where in the Mariners series, they're coming right at this team. So you got to be geared up. You got to be ready to hit the ball. And so big shout out to them for making the adjustment, right? We always talk, how is a team going to change what's happening? And it's going from game to game and making the appropriate adjustments. And from what I saw in this game, those adjustments were made. So that shows me that this team is locked in and actively trying to make a difference in their game every day. It's not just going up there like, oh, well, I'm going to be hot today, or I'm not going to be hot today, or we'll see what happens. It's going up there. It's understanding what you did wrong and how you can fix it. That was my biggest component for this game, and I think they knocked it out of the park today.
No, absolutely. Like, one thing we've seen with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. a lot is that he's been not very aggressive, is to say the least, especially earlier on in the count. And you brought up this thing about not usually getting that middle pitch most of the time. And that's for sure. Most of the time, like, you're not going to get back-to-back middle pitches. But luckily for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in that at-bat, where I thought he was going to hit a line drive home run that maybe got, 20 feet in the air. Like, this thing just wouldn't stop carrying. But he gets a slider. This one's probably one of George Kirby's worst sliders of the day. This one really hangs. Not a very good pitch. You're like, oh, Vladdy, come on. You got to swing at that. That's the pitch you need. And George Kirby, for some reason, obviously didn't want it here, but he comes back, maybe a little bit of a better slider, but it's literally right down the middle once again. And Vladdy isn't going to miss that same pitch twice, hammers it down the middle, down the left field line, but a pitch right down the middle. Again, it looked like it might have been 150 miles off the bat. This ball absolutely crushed. And that's what you want from Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So just having that approach change within the game is something massive. And it's one thing that's sometimes hard to predict, because we look at the Seattle Mariners rotation, their starters so far this series. I would argue that Bryce Miller was by far their best starting pitcher up to this point. And then I'd probably go George Kirby, Logan Gilbert. You can really change the two of them. But if you look at on paper, you're definitely taking Logan Gilbert and George Kirby over a guy like Bryce Miller. So it's very day-to-day. The guys can have stuff. They cannot have their stuff. And you really can tell, especially pitching-wise, what is working. Sometimes their slider isn't working. Sometimes a curveball isn't working. Sometimes you have one pitch that isn't necessarily breaking the right way. Maybe it's not commanded the right way. So it's all about in-game adjustments. And I'm not sure if this one might have been a between-game adjustment, because we saw it a lot, obviously. The fans probably saw Vladdy maybe less aggressive than we'd want him to be at the plate. But it was definitely nice to see Vladimir Guerrero Jr. kind of clutch up and come up with some massive at-bats. And there's one thing that I did want to talk about while we're kind of on the conversation with the middle of this order. It was in that third inning as well, is that Alejandro Kirk comes up with runners on first and second, I believe, at this point. And then it would have been, it was bases loaded, I think. And then there was a pass ball. Anyway, at some point, Alejandro Kirk gets walked. And you could tell by their approach at the plate and the Mariners' approach to Alejandro Kirk that they were working him outside. They didn't really want to go after him, so they didn't want Alejandro Kirk to be the guy that was going to beat them in a big spot. And who was up behind him? Daulton Varsho, which for me, if you have the bases loaded up at this point, I think Daulton Varsho might be the guy I want up to the plate, because this guy seems to be an absolute demon with the bases loaded. I know he cashed in with runners on third and second because there was a wild pitch. But when you have Vladimir Guerrero Jr., then you go into, there's kind of a gaping hole in the fourth spot. Would be nice to have Bichette there. That's not a reality we have, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. But when you have Alejandro Kirk going up at number 5, then you have Daulton Varsho coming up at number 6, you got multiple different guys throughout an order that can do damage and have shown you that they can come up in big scenarios, not just for that infield hit, for that single. These guys are crushing balls. They're hitting them in the gaps, off the wall, and out of the park. That's exactly what you need for this offense to be successful. And I think at the point where we are with the Toronto Blue Jays is, and we've seen it all year, we've seen the stat where they're like 78-5 or 78-4, whatever it is, when they score 5 runs or more. If this offense shows up, they're probably going to win the baseball game. But if it comes down to that pitching duel where it's a 2-3-1 ball game and that's all you're going to score in a game, a lot of the time the Toronto Blue Jays aren't going to come out on top of that. So this team is very offensively driven. And it should be, because you have a lot of guys throughout this order that can do damage at any time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, that's, you score more runs, you're more likely to win a baseball game. That's, that's how this game is played. But at the end of the day, when it comes to postseason games, it isn't the runs that sometimes are the difference maker. It's the outs, right? You only have a certain number of outs. So you have to make those. You have to be good defensively. You have to make the plays. And this team really has been able to do that. It's just, do the pitching give up a million long balls or not? Don't get me wrong. They still gave up a decent amount, but it is what it is. Carter, I want to get into this before we talked about game 4. Obviously, we're going to spend a decent amount of time teeing that up, because as great as this win is, and I think it instills more hope back into the fan base, it's a long road ahead. There's still many games and a lot to break down and preview from us. But just a statistic here. This is from the broadcast. This is from game 1 of the Mariners Blue Jays series. Now, this is just showing you how amazing the Canadian fan base is here. A total in that first game was just over 10 million viewers. 5.3 of those viewers were from the States, whereas 4.7 million Canadians tuned in for the Blue Jays Mariners game 1 series. And I think the amount of people that this Toronto Blue Jays team brings back to baseball when they make the postseason or they're going on a good run, it's really nice to see. As much as we talk about, hockey and football and everything else, baseball just, I think it captures the hearts of a lot of fans. And that's really good to see from from being Canadians, loving baseball. Me and you growing up in a small town, there was a lot of ball fans in our little town, but it wasn't the same as like the hockey and the whatever. But when it comes to ball and postseason and loving this team, the Canadians really do show out. That's a really nice number to see, Carter.
Yeah, a lot of diehard Toronto Blue Jays fans as well, like especially from those small towns. Or maybe we don't have as many as your common hockey fan, but the people that are baseball fans, especially where we're from, I'm sure in Toronto as well. Maybe there's a little bit more saturated because the baseball team is literally in Toronto and you can go and watch it. But for us, like everyone that we talk to that talks about the Toronto Blue Jays, like they're invested. They are living and dying on pretty much every pitch. And there's some that are on the negative side where after that Shane Bieber home run, like it was over, and the Jays, when they lost a game this year, pretty much the season was done. Then we got the other ones that are fairly more on the other side, on the optimistic side, that one of our buddies was actually getting roasted in our comment sections on one of our shorts. So that was a little bit funny to see. Took one on the chin. We take a lot of them on the chin as well. So it's nice to see him, get a little bit of the razzing that some fan bases get. But hey, that's part of the fun, and that's why we do this as well. So definitely no harm done there. But like you said, there's a big game ahead, because let's be honest, you win game 3, that's great. But if you lose game 4, it's 3-1. For me, you're in the pretty much the same hole. You got to win 3 in a row. The odds aren't necessarily in your favor. Yes, you do have some games at home, but this game matters a lot. The difference between 2-2 going, into the last game at the Seattle Mariners Park, T-Mobile, or, going down 3-1 and then having to win 3 straight. I like the prospects of the first one, obviously, a lot better. So there is a ton more that we want to get into. A big game and a big pitching preview, which has a lot of people asking some questions, is the way I'll leave it until we get into that segment. Much more we want to get into, and we will dive right into that after this short break. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss this excitement of this football season and baseball season with Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Playing Prize Picks is so much fun. It's a simple way to add excitement for more football and baseball. You can pick more than or less than on player projections, like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley's rushing yards or his touchdowns, and you're right in the game. So football season's on. I'm obviously a very big fan, but you're in the MLB playoffs. I've been watching a lot of Brewers, Dodgers. I've obviously been watching every single Jays and Mariners game. So I'm going to be sticking with the baseball. We're going to go into it farther in the third segment, but I'm going to be riding with Max Scherzer strikeouts. Again, I don't necessarily love the prospect of him starting a game 4, but he's going to do it. We can't get around it. So I'm going to be riding more than strikeouts. I have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. more than hits, and I'm going to ride the Daulton Varsho with the jersey on my back. I got him more than hits as well. So you can download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right.
So, Carter, as we continue on, teeing up game 4, it's a big one. It's a massive one. You said it. You end up being in the same hole as you just were if you lose game 4. So it's not impossible, but a win here makes a hell of a difference. Max Scherzer, Luis Castillo, this is this is huge, dude. I was so nervous going into game 3, right? Me and you were sitting on the couch, and I don't think me and you said a word until Shane Bieber gave up the home run. We're sort of just sitting there praying to all the baseball gods out there. And now in game 4, you need the old guy, Unk, to come in and get the job done. And, there's going to be people that are fired up and saying, hey, maybe Max Scherzer can bring some of that playoff magic back in his old age. There are others that will not believe that will happen. Where do you stand on this? Where do you stand on Max Scherzer? Because this is probably the biggest conversation piece going into this game.
I'm worried. How can you not be worried? I get that he's an ex-Cy Young winner. That was many years ago. Let's just looking at the prospects of Max Scherzer and just what he will give you if he gets thrown into a baseball game. He has about a 5 ERA over over the season. Of his last few starts, it's probably worse than that. We haven't seen Max Scherzer perform to that ability that we've wanted, at least when we were talking about him being a playoff starter in all of September. I'd even go back to early August if you wanted to look at the quality outings that we were looking for Max Scherzer. So I'm pretty worried. I'm not worried about the moment being too big. I'm worried about his performance. I'm worried about his literal ability and his skill to get hitters out. I think in this matchup, we've seen it all year, is that he has really struggled getting out lefties when he doesn't have that slider, that ability to throw that slider away from right-handed hitters. He doesn't really have a pitch to get the lefties out. So Josh Naylor, that's going to be a main guy that I'm going to see, especially if he gets to him in that first inning, where we've seen Max Scherzer having a million ERA. So that's another thing I'm going to be looking at, is how he does manage that first inning. But first inning and the lefties, that's going to be the storyline of Max Scherzer. If he survives the first inning, if he can get out of there with, I'll even say 1 run, I'd rather it be nothing, but if he can get out of there with limited damage, I'll feel okay about it. It's really going to see, we're going to see it in the first inning if he kind of has the stuff, or if he can get guys out, or if they're on his pitches right away. But I'd be lying to you if I said I was very confident in Max Scherzer. I could see it going well, but I would be, unfortunately, the way I'm at is that I could see it going not very well, or him getting blown up more likely than I can see it going well for Max Scherzer.
No, I'm in the same boat with you. I mean, I don't think you can be thrilled about this. I said it way before. I would have much rather this been a Chris Bassitt start. Obviously, that's not what we got here.
I think we'll see Chris Bassitt definitely thrown into this setting at some point, whether it's, the second inning, hopefully it's not the second inning, third, fourth, fifth. I think we'll see Chris Bassitt at some point, though.
So how short is this leash for you with Max Scherzer?
The shortest thing of all time.
Yeah. And
I'm not saying first, if you're starting Max Scherzer as unless it's 6 runs in the first inning, which God forbid if that happens, there are going to be a lot of people that are not happy with the decision that John Schneider made. And us, honestly, I don't love going to Max Scherzer here either. Even with all the accolades, with everything going on with Max Scherzer, I would have loved to see a Chris Bassitt start here. I think that's where you should have went. Again, same prospect, short lease. You saw him be productive out of the bullpen. I know maybe the semantics aren't necessarily where you want him to be. Chris Bassitt isn't as stretched out as Max Scherzer, but you're trying to win right now. I hope it goes well, especially for John Schneider, with him being under the light that he is with. But this is another one of those decisions that I don't necessarily love. And I really hope that I'm proved wrong, which I have been multiple times throughout the season. So hopefully that I'm just wrong once again.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I think this is a bad call, but at the end of the day, you have to make one. And this is the one that they went with. And if it goes badly, yeah, it will be on John Schneider. Because
for me, I don't see him going through the order a third time. Even the second time I probably have the bullpen up the second time. If you get him through I'm looking for 3-4 innings from Max Scherzer. If you get any more than that, I'm happy. Third time through the order, I'm not even risking it. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. And again, this is all going to come down to what can this offense do as well. Because if Max Scherzer can give you 3 and this team can score 6 runs, well, then maybe you roll them back out for another one, right? Or maybe you roll back, whatever it may be. But the spotlight 100% is going to be on John Schneider if this doesn't go well. So I pray for his sake that Max Scherzer can go out there and do some damage. Now, will it happen? Wait to be seen, I guess.
Yeah, let's give us your prediction here, though. Say first 6 innings. Give us how you think it's going to be rolled out. Give us the Max Scherzer stat line, and then just who you're going right after Max Scherzer. If it's a clean inning, maybe it's runners on. Don't go too far in depth. Give us your Max Scherzer, then 2 bullpen arms. Whether it's Chris Bassitt, whether it's Eric Lauer, whoever.
Yeah. So it all depends on situation, because Eric Lauer, is a certain situation you'd rather put him in. I think you try to go to Chris Bassitt if you can, but I think that you'd rather start Chris Bassitt on a clean inning. I think that would be the goal for him. You don't want to have him come in who gives up soft contact. The guys who can put balls in play with runners on. I think that's just asking for danger. So I think that you let Chris Bassitt start whatever inning you pull Scherzer in, you start him the next clean inning. And then whoever you go to in that situation, if it is Varland or Lauer or whoever it may be, Dominguez, whatever, I think they try to save Dominguez for later in the game. But yeah, I'm praying that he can go 3. You turn it over to a guy to maybe it's in the 4th with 2 outs, whatever it is. And then you flip it to Chris Bassitt for hopefully he can give you 2 or 3. And then you can rock that into sort of a late bullpen game from some of the bigger dogs. So we'll have to wait and see, but that's sort of where I'm at, Carter.
Yeah, for me, if Max Scherzer goes 4 innings, I think you probably just go right into the bullpen. If he goes anything under 4 innings, we probably see Chris Bassitt in some capacity. I don't know if it's a piggyback right off Max Scherzer. Like you said, I'd rather have Chris Bassitt come in with the clean inning. I'd rather not have him in that a traditional relief role where he comes in bases loaded, 1 out. That's not a good situation for Chris Bassitt. John Schneider's been very good at setting his guys up for success, so I don't really see that as being a possibility. And just with the way the bullpen's kind of been rolled out, luckily for us, the game 3 went pretty well, so you didn't really use a lot of high leverage arms. Used Yariel Yariel Rodriguez in my opinion, I don't even know if you can roll this guy out anymore. And if the game's even close. So I think you're really operating with 7 bullpen arms. Mason Fluharty didn't have a great start either. I still think you have to trust him, but you have 7 bullpen arms. But luckily you didn't need to use a lot of them in game 3. Didn't use any of them obviously the day before because he had an off day. So I think you have everyone at your disposal. So I think if Max Scherzer can give you any sort of length, you might want to save Chris Bassitt. I could see Chris Bassitt going in. So again, it's all very situational, but I just hope it's not Louis Varland in the middle of a random inning where there's runners on. Just don't go to Louis Varland as the piggyback off Max Scherzer. Whether it's Anthony Dominguez, it could be Eric Lauer, even Mason Fluharty. I don't care who it is. Just don't make it Louis Varland again. I do not want to see him give up another long ball with inherited runners. But I kind of wanted to flip it over to the other side of things. Luis Castillo. The Blue Jays have faced Luis Castillo 2 different times this season, and they have got to him pretty much both times. Luis Castillo not really being the pitcher. Well, he still is very good. I don't want to take too much away from him, but the velocity has been down from his peak years. He still is very good, but I would say out of the Seattle Mariners starters, in which we've kind of seen throughout this series, the way it's been laid out, he's probably the 3rd best guy. So how are you feeling as Luis Castillo? And do you think like the previous meetings this season have any sort of effect on that? Do you think the Blue Jays can use that in their prior successes to help them out in this playoff series?
I think mentally you can use it, but that's about it. I think everything gets thrown away, right? You make it to the playoffs, and yes, I guess you've seen his pitches. You know what is going to come probably, but a playoff atmosphere is different, and so you got to be ready. You got to be locked in to go. And like I talked about before in the last segment, is you got to be ready to go right off the bat. You can't take the first 2 innings off. You can't take 3 innings off in the middle of the game. You have to get on his pitches early. You have to be ready to go, and you got to do damage. You got to try to get to that pen, even though the Mariners' pen has been pretty good as well, or not pretty good, very good. You have to get him out of the game and do damage while he's in there, if that's the case as well. So it can't be just a solo shot here. It has to be the Toronto Blue Jays game, right? Get him on, get him over, get him in. That's what the Toronto Blue Jays have to do here. So I think they can have success, but I don't take much away from the first couple outings they faced against them. I just think you can't when it's playoffs.
That's also tough when the 2 outings were April 20th and May 9th. So unfortunately, there has been a little bit of baseball between then. I'll go over just briefly some of the stat lines. The April 20th one was 5 innings pitched, 10 hits, 3 earned runs given up. Did have 2 walks in that game, 5 strikeouts. And then going to the May 9th one, they had 5 innings pitched once again, 7 hits, 5 earned runs. So scored a little bit more runs on them here. 3 strikeouts, 2 walks. So clearly they're getting the hits. They have the ability to get hits off Luis Castillo. As I said, the fastball velocity has gone down. And as we've seen throughout previous episodes, we've talked a lot about velocity and how that matters for the effectiveness of pitchers. When you don't have your velocity, it makes things easier to see. You have hitters have more reaction time. They have more time to react to the ball. Hitters are already very good. You give them more time to react. They're probably going to hit a little bit better against you. So I think with the prior history, again, I'm not taking anything away. Like, since you saw him on May 9th, like all of a sudden that's the familiarities. All of a sudden it's going to line up. The stars are going to line. You're going to figure it out. I just think that if you hit, I know George Kirby didn't necessarily have his best stuff. You hit Logan Gilbert. It's very, day to day. Luis Castillo can go out with that playoff atmosphere and throw his fastball 3 miles per hour faster than he's been doing it all season. Maybe we'll see the grossest Luis Castillo we've ever seen. But with the way the Toronto Blue Jays have been playing, I don't think they're done after game 3. I think they're going to hopefully continue this momentum on. This is where I would put my money. Continue this momentum on, and the offense is going to succeed against Luis Castillo. And we will see a game 5 where the series is tied 2-2. If everything works out according to the way I hope it does, the Toronto Blue Jays would have won a million World Series, but I really believe in this one.
Carter, just before we end here for the episode, I did want to throw out the Gold Glove finalists.
Everybody. Just put out the roster.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Catcher, Alejandro Kirk. I think he's got a very, very good shot to win this one this season going up against Dingler and Narvaez. I think he's the shoe-in. And then at first base, the Blue Jays have a 2 out of 3 chance. It's Ty France, it's Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and it's Carlos Santana there. Andres Gimenez at second base. And then third base, you got Ernie Clement, utility. You also have Ernie Clement. So the Blue Jays are scattered across the Gold Glove nominees. So shout out to those guys. Excellent defensive team this year. Excellent. Not even just this year. The past few years, it's been unbelievable. So shout out to all those guys. Ernie Clement really deserves one. I think he's going to get one.
Yeah, 3-time champs, probably as team Gold Glove winners. does anyone really care about that? Did anyone even know that? Let's be honest. Probably not. I just know that because we've been following this team very closely, especially over these last 3 years. And we have seen the accolades. We're looking for some different hardware this year. So hopefully the Toronto Blue Jays can get closer and closer to that goal and take Game 4 against the Seattle Mariners. And we report to you guys with a brand new series going into Game 5. But our fate relies in the hands of Max Scherzer. So let us know how you guys are feeling about that. I would love to see you guys predict some stat lines, see like what you'd be comfortable with him doing, what you actually expect him to do, because we're not very confident. Hopefully he does prove us wrong, and hopefully he proves probably a lot of, let's be honest, baseball fans wrong. You trot out a 41-year-old that hasn't pitched at all in the playoffs, and all of a sudden he's thrown in the mix in Game 4 of a World Series. He's definitely World Series. We're getting there. ALCS, it's probably going to have some people, skeptical, to say the least, about Max Scherzer. Just wanted to say thank you guys for watching. All the support recently has been absolutely ridiculous, but we will be back with you guys again, hopefully after a Jays win.